Today's topic is on a big walk, a big trek. Some might even say the great journey. It makes Frodo's trip down to Mount Doom seem very, very small indeed. And who was it that made this journey? It was the Elves. Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. This is Gone with Gandalf, and every single Friday I make videos about the lore of Middle-earth, such as this one. And if you do like it, then make sure to like it and subscribe, why not? And this topic was actually suggested by Uriel, Shadow of Saturn, a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, yeah, why not go for it? Let's not muck around then, let's get right on into it. We're going to go over who it was, how it was, why it was, and when it was. I think that's the other one I'm missing. Well, we'll start off with the easy one. Who was it? Well, they were the Elves of Quirveen, and this is where the Elves awoke originally and born, if you like that. They just came into existence in this location, way out in the east of Middle-earth, and they were the ones that went on the Great Journey. And then the next logical question is, when was it? And this was during the Years of the Trees. So the Years of the Trees occurred before the Third Age, Second Age, First Age of the Sun. And so this was before there was even a sun, before there was a moon up in the sky, and Valinor had these two trees that illuminated and gave off some light. And more specifically, then the Great Journey began in the year 1105 of the Years of the Trees and finished in the year 1150. Although it's also worth mentioning that one Valian year, as these are in the Years of the Trees, that's a bit longer than a usual solar year that then they'd bring into effect during the Years of the Sun in the First, Second and Third Age. So yeah, they really took their time, really took their time. So why did they go on this great journey? Well, just before they embarked on the journey, there was a bit of a kerfuffle, a bit of a battle between, well, it was a war between the Valar of the West and Melkor, who was up in the north of Middle-earth. And they, well, you know, he'd begun corrupting some of the elves already at this point, and the Valar were like, no, we're not having this. So they went in, they had a battle, a war against Melkor, and, you know, they won. And after that war, then they were like, hey, elves, this area around here, there's it's really damaged. It's not nice. You won't really like it. Obviously, you know, there's been all kinds of earth-shattering, calamitous events going off in the north during the war, during these gods that, you know, shaped the world. So why not just, you know, pop round, come to Valinor, we'll have a party, we'll have barbecues every Saturday. Well, maybe not, but yeah, it's much better. But obviously, the elves, you know, at this point, they're like, well, I mean, it's not so bad here, I guess. What is it over there that's going to be so much better than what we have? So 3 members of the elves at Quirveen were chosen as ambassadors. There was one for each of the clans, for the Teleri, the Banyar and Noldor. And these 3 ambassadors of the clans were Finwë of the Noldor, Ingwë of the Vanyar, and Elwë of the Teleri. These 3 elves then, they popped off to Valinor, had a look around, yeah, I could see myself living there, yeah, it's not so bad. Then they came all the way back and kind of convinced the elves that were there to also make the journey and, you know, make that permanent. Most of them agreed, and then, you know, off they popped. And, well, next question, how did they get there? Because it's a very long journey, and, you know, there is a gigantic sea between Valinor and Middle-earth, even at this time. So, well, the answer's quite obvious. They obviously didn't have tractors or aeroplanes or, you know, like in Avatar, they've got those exoskeleton bodysuit tank type things. I don't know what I'm saying. The bottom line is they had to walk. And, you know, at this point as well, there weren't really any paths anywhere because no one lived there yet. So it was a very long and arduous journey indeed. And for that reason, not every single elf actually went on that journey. If I just read out some of the year dates of, checkpoints along the way. So they set off in 1105. That's when the Eldar left Cuivinen. Then the year 1115, that is when they reached the High Pass, which is just, basically where Rivendell is, where you've got the Misty Mountains. There's like a pass over it, just there. And then in the year 1125, that is when the first of the Vanyar and Noldor actually made it to Beleriand, which is, just if you're familiar with the map of the Third Age, it's kind of Lindon and further west from there. So many of the Noldor and Vanyar then travelled straight through Beleriand over to the coast and just kind of waited there, twiddled their thumbs and go like, right, when can we go? Like, are we gonna paddle over there? Like, what's going on? Like, In the year 1132 then, there was no sea bus, no taxi ride. The Valar uprooted an island, Tol Eressëa, the Lonely Isle, out from the seabed and popped the elves on top of that and, just pulled the island over the sea to Aman. And, well, that wasn't all of the elves, because some of them were still chilling back in Beleriand because they were just really, really slow. And that is actually why the Teleri got their name, because they were the last. A significant portion of the Teleri actually fell by the wayside by their own volition. They didn't die or anything, they just came off the Great Journey. These are classed as the sunderings of the elves. I'm not going to go into that just in this video because I don't want it to get overly long. However, in the year 1150, this is when the Teleri that were willing to go to Aman, they actually went on to Tol Eressëa, which had come back over the sea, and they popped on it and went over to Aman. And then, why was the Great Journey so significant? Well, obviously, most of the well-known and most powerful elves would then go on the Great Journey, and they would end up in Aman, and they would spend thousands, tens of thousands of years there perhaps, and they would learn a lot of things from the Valar, because of course they knew everything. They'd made this world, so they knew every little bit, nuance of nature, and they taught this all to the elves. And many of you will know that Galadriel is one of those elves that kind of really wanted to know everything, and they just were really a knowledge hoover. And this is something that later on, particularly in the Third Age, lesser races such as men and hobbits and even the dwarves, they would look at this kind of knowledge and assume that it's magic, because they obviously can't understand what it is, but perhaps all it really is the use of further knowledge that these lesser races don't have, because they've not been around for very long and they didn't have tuition from the actual creators of the world. And then another little interesting tidbit is that, of course, the creation of Arda is something that we read about, or can read about, in the Silmarillion. And the Silmarillion is what Bilbo translated in the libraries of Rivendell, when he trotted off after his unexpected party and spent about 20 years in Rivendell. Well, that's all he was doing. He was just going through the libraries, checking out all the notes from past elves that had written in the books there. And all those accounts that were written there are, from elves that had spoken directly with the Valar, asked them these questions like, how was all this made? And that is what is written in that book that you might read yourself. And of course, whilst this is the Great Journey, there were other journeys, not quite as big, but during the Rebellion of the Noldor, I'm not going to go into that in this video, that's a pretty big journey as well, though. Perhaps the significant journey? And let's just spare a thought for Finwë and Ingwë of the Noldor and Vanyar, respectively, who actually made the journey to Aman, back to Cuivinen, and then back to Aman. That is a really long way to go. Not all elves, though, went on the Great Journey, and those that didn't go on the journey right at the very beginning, the ones that stayed back in Cuivinen, they were known as the Avari, and they were the refusers. I had to check that. Additionally then, before they went over the high pass, some of the elves, they were like, I don't really want to go over the Misty Mountains. They look really high and I'm a bit scared. And so they didn't. And they became the Nandor. And then those Teleri that stayed in Beleriand, they would become the Grey Elves or the Sindar. So basically, some went, some flaked out, some got lost in the woods, and some didn't want to leave their king behind and then missed the boat. Now, due to all of this as well, you get some discrepancies in the levels of power of different elves. So they're not all equal. Those that went to Aman, they are vastly more knowledgeable and more powerful than those that stayed back in Cuivinen. So next time, I think I'm going to do a bit of a comparison list of the relative powers of each of these elf clans, if you wish to call them that. So I hope that sounds interesting. But if it doesn't sound interesting, then do let me know, because I can always change my mind. I do these pretty much the day before Friday, also known as Thursday, and you know, if you pop it down in the comments and I find that interesting and I think that you guys would enjoy it, then I will gladly do a video on that subject, just as I have done today. So let me know. And anyway, I think we can pretty much wrap it up there. So one more time, do like the video. But if you don't like the video, then dislike the video, but then you also have to subscribe. That's the deal. But anyway, I am Game with Gandalf now. Good day.